you can use those opportunities now to build your base. You're still going to have different opportunities as you get to be 18, 20, 25, 35, kids, job, grandkids. Like, that's going to change through your life, but it's developing that base right now.
What's up, good people? Welcome to season 3 of the Dear Young Athlete podcast, where we talk to coaches and athletes about their journeys and what advice they would have for a younger version of themselves. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson. I am a speaker, author, recording artist, content creator, rare disease advocate, and an aspiring Paralympian. If you want to hear my story, check out season 1, episode 1. But enough about me. Let's meet our guest. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with a very special guest. The man here today, he is a husband. He is a father. He is an educator. He is an FCA leader, a former collegiate basketball player and coach, and he has been a head basketball coach for 22 years. Without further ado, Michael Tauber. Coach, how are you?
Good. How's it going, Jacob?
Good. I'm excited to be here, excited to hear your story. So you've been a coach for a long time. You were a college player, but take us back to the very beginning. How did it begin for you? How did you fall in love with playing sports?
Well, I grew up in a household, kind of a typical, what I would say normal household, although we had a lot of kids. But my mom was a nurse. My dad was a teacher and a coach. I had 2 older sisters, 3 younger brothers, so there were 6 total kids in the family. I fall kind of right in the middle there, but the oldest boy. And excuse me. When I was young, I was always into sports. I always remember playing sports, doing sports, being around sports. When I was very young, my dad was actually the head football coach. And I don't remember that. But when I was a couple years old, then I started to hang around after school. So I got to like 4 and 5. And then as I got into elementary school, I would hang out at basketball practice. So my dad was the assistant basketball coach for a few years there. And I would jump on the bus at the elementary school, go over to the high school every single day on that bus, and then go to practice. My dad was also the head track coach. So he coached track for 50 years, exactly 50 years. And then the COVID year, when that spring was canceled, he didn't have his 51st year, and he didn't come back after that. So he ended at 50 years. He coached basketball for, I think it was 47 years in some form or fashion. But when I was in 4th grade, he became the head basketball coach. And that's when it got really cool for me as a kid, right? My dad became the head basketball coach. I had been around these guys, these older players, because I would always go to practice and watch and hang out in the hallway and have a ball in my hand. And now those are the varsity guys, and my dad was coaching them. And his very first year as a head coach, they went to the what was at the time the region finals against a really good team. They upset the number 1 team in the state the game before that. And I thought it was cool. Not only did I like basketball, but I thought coaching was cool. When I was in 4th grade, I thought right then, like, oh, I want to be like my dad. I want to be a coach. I want to do this. I want to be around this. And then, you kind of, as the years go by, you wonder, like, am I actually going to do that or not, until you actually get into it. But so I was always involved. I then played for my dad in basketball. I also was in track, and then I also was in football. So in football, we were a very successful team. We were in the state tournament numerous times down at Metrodome when that was in existence.
Yeah.
And then in basketball, I played for my dad for 3 years, from sophomore through senior year, but played, had a lot of success my junior and senior year playing basketball. And then in track, I kind of tried everything. So I also am now a track coach, but I tried everything. I tried hurdles because I was tall and lanky, but I was kind of slow. I tried discus because I was kind of long. I tried, pretty much anything. But ultimately, the later years, I ended up being a high jumper. Did well with that. Still kind of cool. I'm still hold the school record in high jump, even though I'm really old now. Nobody's broken it there. And um, I've got I did triple jump, high jump, and then I ran the 400. Is kind of what I ended up the last couple of years in track specializing in. So,
Cool.
uh, and then from there on to college.
Well, let's
Or am I
let's
getting ahead?
pause. Let's pause.
Okay.
I mean, I love the beginning story. Mine's a little different, but I would follow my older brother to baseball practice and basketball, and that's kind of how his coach let me play on the team. And so I love that idea of the little kid just following. I have a 3 and a 2-year-old boy. So my 2-year-old would follow my 3-year-old to T-ball this summer, and he would run out on the field and be like, "I'm on the team. I'm on the team." And I was like, "No, buddy, you're not, but you will be next year." So I love that story. Really cool opportunity you had to play for your dad. So you're playing football, basketball, track. It sounds like basketball is kind of the best one. So when it comes to college, how do you begin to think about what you want to play in college, where you want to go? What does that process look like?
Well, I think, and kind of back to your story of like your kids and then you following your older brother. I think it's that family piece of a lot of times the younger siblings. Like, I had two older sisters, right? So the younger siblings, they get exposed earlier, and when I had a dad that coached, I got exposed earlier than other kids, right? I was able to go to practice. No other kids got to go to practice, right? I got to go to practice when I was really young and all the way up, and I was the water boy and did all that. Um, uh, my younger brothers then, able to see the older brother. I see it with the kids I coach now. The younger siblings oftentimes get exposed a little bit earlier and they adapt a little bit faster. Not always, but a lot of times that's what happens. And they're a little more used to it. So with my older sisters going off to college, they also were in cross country. They did basketball and then did track. They did not do a college sport, but in the process of, you jump in the car and you go on college visits with your older siblings. And so you get exposed a little bit to college that way. But between my junior and senior year, I was recruited by a number of schools. What was the old NSIC, which is it was kind of a fledgling Division II league, and then the NCC, which was the bigger schools, the UNDs, the NDSUs, and that sort of thing. And the NSIC is kind of where I fit in, and where I got most of the NAIA and NSIC schools. And now the NSIC is converged. So people that are listening, it's now part of the NCC and NSIC. It's a bigger league now. We had 8 teams when I played, and then we expanded to 10 my last year. But it was, northern states, the Southwest states, the Winonas, Moorhead, Duluth, those type of schools. And ultimately I decided to go to Morris. And I knew I wanted to play a college sport. I think that's what we talk to kids a lot about now, right? In FCA, we try to get the idea of sports are important. But there are other things that are very important too. And we don't want to just hang our hat on like, I'm just going to be a college athlete and forget about our high school experience and what we're getting here. It's not just about working to the next level. It's about making the most at the level you're at. And I felt like I did that because I wasn't convinced, like, even though I was being recruited and I got letters, it was back in the letter days. It wasn't email. But I got letters and recruited, and I wasn't convinced that I was a college athlete. I wanted to be a college athlete, but I would go and watch these games, and I'm like, these guys are really good, and they're big, and they weigh 45 pounds more than I do. But I wanted to give it a try. So in considering where to go and looking at different things, I was like, okay, I'm either going to go to this bigger school and not do sports, or I'm going to try to go to one of these schools and give it a shot. So I decided to go to Morris, which at the time it was part of that NSIC. Morris has moved to the UMAC now, which is a Division III league, mainly for football at the time is why they moved. But we were Division II, and we would play the St. Cloud States and the Moorheads and Bemidji's and Northern State and those schools. And I got there, and my freshman year, I wasn't on the traveling varsity group, which was the top 12, but it got to play. And at the time, it was a little different. There was a JV team there that you could play JV and still be in the program, and you're kind of waiting. It's like you're redshirting. And then my sophomore year through my senior year, I was on the varsity and playing some good minutes and had a nice role there. Basically, myself and two other guys that were my same age were the post players, and they were better than me. So I was the sixth man. They started, and I was the sixth man, and occasionally got to start or a second half if coach was mad. I would get to go out there and start the second half. But I got to play a lot and was in the regular rotation, and just had a blast. So decided to go to Morris and do that.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like you touched on a few important things, like one being living in the moment. Like, you don't know when you're in high school if you're gonna play in college. There are so many factors around that. Like, you could be injured, you could not be good enough, you could end up at a school that you don't play, whatever it is. So really, you can't overlook the season that you're in, looking at the next season. And that is so true in your sport and just in your life. And then you kind of touch on, like, thinking about schools. My encouragement, especially to players that may be listening, is like, think about it as a whole person. You can't just pick a school for a sport. But that can be a factor. Like, do you want to play a sport? Do you actually want to get in the game or ride the bench or what? I mean, it can sound great to post on Instagram that you're going to a D1 school, but if you never get to play, would you rather be at a less cool Instagram post but get minutes? So I think that's important. And then I love that you just talk about being the sixth man and embracing that role, right? Because everyone wants to be a starter, of course. But you being self-aware enough to say, hey, they're better than me, and kind of being happy to get in the game and contribute the best you can. I mean, that's such a good word for anyone that's listening.
Yeah, I think my experience has, I think, really helped me as a coach, because when I was in high school, I did well, and I wasn't a big scorer. I wasn't a 25 point a game scorer, but I felt like I was a really good all around player. I could handle the ball as a big guy. I was a good defender. I felt like I was a leader, directing traffic. I could slide outside and inside some. When I went to college, I was definitely a role player, and I think the reason I played is not because I was better than some of the guys I played it ahead of, but that I found the spot, right? I found the role that was needed, and I, like you said, accepted that role. Getting into, getting to college and saying I wanted to be a college athlete, that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of a team. I didn't have the confidence, whether it was right or not. I didn't have the confidence that I was going to go in and like just blow everybody away. I just wanted to make the team, and like like be successful and be a part of it. And then in being a part of it, and like I said, especially my sophomore year, then finding that role about maybe a month or month and a half into the season, and all of a sudden I'm in that role, and I never really moved out of that role. And I truly enjoyed it. I talked to kids about, like, don't ever settle for your role. Try to push for more. Try to compete for more, because you're either going to pass that guy or you're going to make that kid better. Um, but you need to understand your role and embrace your role, right? So
Yeah.
so to not settle for it, but to embrace it and to work at understanding it. And that's for us as coaches. We need to communicate to kids what their role is, not have them guessing, but also try to say, here's what you can do to either make yourself better or make your teammate better in that role. And there's roles all over teams. Coaching in a sport like basketball, where there's only 5 guys on the floor and I've got 18 on the bench, not everybody's going to play. And for sure, not everyone's going to start. So it's really trying to communicate with those roles. And I think my experience helps with some of that, to be able to say, hey, this role is really important, because I felt like I had a really important role on my college team. So
Yeah. If you're on the bench and you know you're not gonna get in, you better be the best bench hype man in the conference.
absolutely.
High-fiving guys, get up there, do your little 3-point celebrations. Um,
Yeah, we have great benches on our teams here in Rockford, on our basketball team, and that's part of it. Is you tell a kid, like, this is your role. Like, you're not going to get in most likely in this tight game. So you're either going to sit there, or or we're going to be engaged. And we get those kids engaged, and they I don't think everyone's always happy, like, oh, I didn't play again. But I think that's why they come back, is because they enjoy being a part of it. And then they say, hey, like, my job is to get my teammates fired up and to see us have success. And most of the kids accept that and understand that and embrace that. So, and just be a star in it. Say, be a star in your role, right? So
yeah, love it. So tell us, kind of going from playing to coaching and what that looks like. Hey, if you are enjoying this podcast, I need you to do 2 things. One, go on whatever platform that you're on and follow the podcast. Rate us and review us. This will help the algorithm and help this podcast reach more people. So thank you. Then I want you to head to 1020words.com/DYA. TEN20words.com/DYA. Check out our merchandise. We got hoodies, crew necks, sweatshorts, t-shirts, anything that you would want. Get some super comfy, stylish apparel and use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off. Follow us on social media, Instagram at Dear Young Athlete, or on TikTok and Instagram. My account is at 1020words. If you're interested in being on the podcast or bringing Dear Young Athlete to your school, team, or group, simply head to the website and click the button that says Bring DYA to your team, school, or group, and send me an email, and I will look forward to connecting with you. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Well, I've been coaching now for quite a while. This is my 25th year at the high school level. I did coach 1 year at college. I ended up changing my major. I actually have multiple things. I decided I wanted to be a teacher and a social studies teacher. After having gotten other things as well in college, I ended up with like 240 credits, and you needed 180 to graduate. So I went a 5th year, and I did coach that year in college I was a student coach, but our assistant coach left. So there was another player that graduated with me. We were going to be student coaches. Well, we ended up being the assistant coaches because the assistant coach left and they didn't fill the spot right at the beginning of the year. So I got to kind of step up in a bigger role, and you're assistant coach at a Division II level, and pretty cool, right? But I knew I was getting married that summer then after my 5th year of college. And I knew I did not want to do the college coach route. I wanted to, but I didn't want to do what it took. And what it takes at that route, in my mind, is moving all the time. You're packing up your family and you're moving, and that is great for some people, and they do very well with it. That's not what I envisioned that I wanted with my life, was to spend 2 years here, 2 years here, 2 years here, and bounce around the country. My family still lives in the house. My parents still live in the house that I was born into. And I don't think they'll ever leave. And that's kind of what I saw as my example of, like, hey, you establish your roots and you do something there. And that's what I wanted to do. So going the high school route then. So then I was able to get a job in the same school district as my wife got a job. She graduated a year before me, worked in a small town. She actually worked in my hometown for 1 year as a teacher. And then she got a job here in Rockford. And about a month later, I got a job here in Rockford. There was a social studies job that opened up and an assistant boys basketball coach. And it was perfect, right? So I was an assistant coach for 3 years. Our head coach ended up getting out. So he had stepped down after my 3rd year. And then I got the head job. And there's people all the time that I talk to, and I'm going a little bit off here, but it will make sense. Where people get into like head coaching right away. And I'm so glad I didn't do that. I'm so glad my first job wasn't like, I got a head coaching job. And there's a lot of turnover in coaching now. And that happens more often than not, where people are just thrown into the head coaching spot. There is so much to learn as being a coach. It's way different than being on the sideline. And when you move over one seat from the assistant spot to the head spot, your whole perspective changes. Everything you see changes. Everything you do changes. It's way different, especially a sport like basketball. So I came in here to Rockford. Rockford did not have a lot of success. They had a couple years where they'd gone 14-11 or 14-12. I think 15 wins was the record when I got here. But I was able to step into the head coaching spot. I had some good young kids that really bought in, and it's gone really well for 21 years. This is my 22nd year as the head coach now. And it's gone really, really well. And I had a group that's still special. I'm in contact with them all the time. I see them a few times a year, do some different events with them. I went on a fishing trip with a bunch of those guys last May. And that's 20 some years ago now. It's about 20 years ago now. It was really cool to be able to establish the program and have what we have now. So it's been a lot of fun.
What, if you can speak to, you told that story about growing up. Was there anything else that made you want to be a coach? And now today, being a coach, like, why do you want to be a coach? What does being a coach mean to you?
I think to your first part about growing up, why I wanted to be a coach, I saw my dad as a coach. I really respect my dad. We all have our moments with our parents, and I had those growing up, right? Where I didn't always like my dad, but I always respected my dad. And I always appreciated him and loved him, and still do. And I saw it. I liked it. I liked the idea of staying involved in sports, of the connections with kids. I had no idea that I was going to be a head coach. I didn't know that I was going to stay in teaching, right? I didn't even know I was going to get a teaching job, because jobs were tougher to get at that time than they are now. But things work out in certain ways, and then deciding, like, when I'm an assistant, you're still like, okay, you're fledgling, right? And then you get the head job, and it's like, all right, well, now I've got this thing I need to commit to, but I'm not thinking in a 20-year time span at that point, right? I don't think anyone's thinking in a 20-year time span or a 30-year time span. They're thinking of that year and maybe the next year, and then you're maybe working with some youth, and you're trying to have a program that you're building, but you're not really, you have a vision, but that vision is very foggy. Of what actually will happen, especially just because there hadn't been a lot of success here with the program before that. and the turnover and other stuff, you never know, right, in coaching. But deciding to do it and then doing it and seeing the rewards, just the rewards with kids, it's fun to win. It's more fun to prepare, to go out there and give your best and go attempt to win. There's competition is good. And it's not about winning, but the preparation piece is what I really like. And I like the connections, and what keeps me in it after so long, is I hope it sounds the right way, but I feel like I have something to offer. Right? Like I feel like, hey, I like this. It's gone well. Here's a group of kids coming up, and I think I have something to offer them. I think I have a way to help them. I can help them become better kids, better men, better players, better students. Like I embrace that idea that if I feel like, hey, I'm not having an effect, or I just don't feel like the kids are getting much from me, then I don't think I should be doing this job. But I do. I feel like I have something to offer, and I want to serve, and I want to provide that. Right? Like service is kind of it's a buzzword right now, like to go serve, but it is the truth. Like you want to go serve and provide things for people, and I want to
Yeah.
provide a good experience. I want every kid when they're done to say, I'm really glad that I was a part of that program. And
Yeah.
I feel, again, there's always some kids that you might have this issue or that problem, or they have other outside concerns, but nearly every kid that's graduated our program would look back and say, I'm glad I did that. And that makes me feel really good and want to keep doing that for kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said about the preparation and that being the part that really, I mean, winning a game is great. Winning maybe a championship, but without the process is what makes the product special. And too often people are, especially in the world we live in now, the social media age, you you're often seeing products. You're seeing, oh, they won, or oh, so and so made it here, and people are striving for this product, but there's a whole process that needs to take place. And if you didn't do the process, it wouldn't even be rewarding. It would be like cheating the system. And it's something in my own life, and I think for a lot of young people too, it's just we need to remember, embrace the process, appreciate the process. It makes me think of my kids. We bought the race cars, the movie, on YouTube. So we've watched it like 30 times.
Yeah.
And in Cars 3, because we had to get all three. Um there's this guy, he's trying to get Lightning McQueen, the main character. He's trying to get him to retire and just enjoy um retirement and make a lot of money and sell merchandise. And the business guy says, you've had a great career, it's time to reap the reward. And Lightning McQueen, he says, the reward is racing. The reward is going 200 miles per hour, navigating traffic. And I think if we can live life that way, it will make a big difference. Like the reward is the day in, day out process of what we do. And when you get a trophy or you get recognized, that's great. But that's 1% of the 100. And if you live your life for that 1%, you're going to spend 99% kind of miserable, right? But if you can appreciate that 99, it'll make that one even sweeter. And I'm definitely catching that in what you're saying. Um, if I can transition a little bit, we mentioned you're an FCA leader. So if you could tell us, for if you don't know, FCA is Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And if you can tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey and kind of how you got to a place where you're wanting to make a spiritual impact on young people.
Yeah, so I'll start back when I was young, and take it to today again. Growing up, I grew up in a traditional household, like I said. My mother and father, multiple kids, um, going to church. We attended church every Sunday, involved in youth group, and just a second, these automatic lights are going to turn off on me. I got to wave my hand to get them back on. There we go. Um, Going to youth group, being involved in my church, very involved in my church, growing up, and having it be an important part of my development. But just like, playing is a process, coaching is a process, life is a process, your spiritual journey and religious involvement is also a process. And going to college, continued to stay involved, but not it wasn't as deep as it was for me when I was in high school. And it was just, there was other things. I grew up, in a very small town. Some would say sheltered. Um, I had kids, my older sisters, my younger brothers. My dad was a teacher. If I was in school, I was like, I couldn't even like put paper on the floor, and somebody would tell my dad that I put paper on the floor in school. So I was always kind of just following the rules, and doing what I was supposed to do, and not always knowing why, right? Like, and even with church, like, oh, we just get up and go to church on Sunday, and we do this, and it was part of the process, which, looking back, was a really good thing to have that as a base. But I'm not sure that I had the depth that I needed at that time. Ended up getting married at 23 after my my last year of college, and right before I started my job here in Rockford, teaching and coaching, and continued, making my way and evolving, changing through that process. But we didn't have an FCA group here. I teach in a public school, which can be very tough to involve religion and other things. But I always felt like I was growing inside, but not necessarily with others. And being involved in church, but like getting that, what I ended up doing is I was teaching, and then I ended up, after my 5th year teaching, I became the dean of students here in Rockford. And then the next year I became the athletic director, the activities director. I also continued to teach and coach, and it was a lot. And then I had my first kid, and then I had my second kid. And it was a challenge on things at home. It was a challenge on things, because I don't know. Like I said, I had the foundation, but I don't think I had the depth that I needed at that time. And I had a number of choices and a number of experiences in my life that were not the way that I would want them to be, knowing like, this is what I'm living my life for. I'm living my life as a Christian. I'm living my life to serve God, not just to serve people, not just to go and try to help some junior be a better basketball player. But it's the bigger picture piece. And I was focused more on, hey, I've got this job to do. I've got this new job. I now have 2 young kids at home. And I'm trying to coach. We're trying to win this game. And I was really focused on that rather than what I think should be the big picture. And you go through the ups and downs, and it was definitely a time where like basketball was going well. I was getting this job and that job, and I was kind of doing all these things that from the outside looks like, wow, this guy's really successful. And inside and at home was not good. And I felt good sometimes. Like you'd go and like you said, you get that win or you get that championship, or we go to the state tournament in basketball, and it's super exciting. But where's the depth of it, right? So going through some of that and just having a lot of different things happen, I ended up stepping down from being the activities director when we went through some cuts in our school. I was going to have additional duties added on top of what I was already doing. And there was a full-time social studies job that someone had left. And I ended up sliding to just, instead of doing multiple hats, I was like, I'm going to do just this. And then I continued to coach basketball. I was able to work on things at home more with my wife and my family and be more of a dad. Became much more involved with our church. And that was a few years that was in that. And then Chad Robran, our FCA, I would call him our leader. I'm also a leader, but Chad is definitely our leader. Chad Robran is our head track coach. He's a local businessman. He's not a teacher, but he's an educator, if that makes sense. Like he's not a teacher in the school, but he's an educator. He thinks like an educator, and he wants to be involved in schools, and he wants to. He coaches, and he coaches multiple things. He's actually helps me in basketball. He's a volunteer ninth grade coach for us and helps out, and has done that for a handful of years now, about 5 years now. And he wanted to get this FCA program going, and he had a couple kids that wanted to do that. So I went from having my own challenges and working to figure some things out and grow at home and with my church and myself, to then seeing, hey, there's this opportunity in this public school where, in practice every day, and in the locker room every day, it's not the same, right? But here's an opportunity for kids that want to be and come in to a Christian setting. And I tell the kids all the time, this is fellowship. It's getting together. It's fellowship of Christian athletes. It's getting together, sharing faith, sharing fun, sharing stories, sharing experiences, sharing our testimonies. And the kids are great. So that had started off, and I was not a part of it. Like I didn't even know this conversation was happening when it first started. And Chad and another teacher had kind of started it, and Chad invited me. So I went to a few, and then I went to a couple more, and then it gets to where you get it on your schedule, right? You get it on instead of an invitation, it gets on your calendar. So it got on my calendar, and then in year 2 of the FCA here, I started showing up regularly. And then it was during that time that Chad was like, he had talked to me about, there's some things you do through FCA to become an official leader. And I did that, and there's a online and some paperwork stuff and other things so you can get approved. And then now we've been helping Chad for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
I think this is my 7th year. And now we have another teacher who also is involved. So there's 3 of us now that are doing the FCA, and it's great I just, when I first started doing it, it was seeing kids sharing their faith in the school. You see them in class, you see them on the field, but now you're seeing them share their faith. And then I got more comfortable as a public school teacher, like having those conversations at FCA that I don't necessarily get to have in the classroom.
Yeah.
It's just been a blessing on me, where I think, like, as a coach, I'm there serving and helping and providing. I feel like as an FCA leader, I'm supposed to do that too, but I'm sure I'm getting a lot. I'm getting a lot from kids. I'm getting a lot of just so impressed with them and learning from them, and how a 15, 16, 17-year-old has the comfort to go share their faith with others and the confidence to do that. I went to church and I went to youth group and we talked, but I never was getting up and sharing and talking. And to see kids doing that in an FCA setting it's just so impressive. And then seeing them be able to grow with each other is really cool and fun.
Yeah. There's this, you're reminding me of a few things. There's this social media trend right now. By the time we release the episode, there'll probably be a new trend. But it's people posting these videos that say, like, I knew about Jesus and then it kind of flips, and because maybe they're showing like an emptiness in their life and in one video saying I knew about Jesus, and then they're saying but now I know Jesus. And there's this distinction, right? And that's what I always want people to understand is like, you could go to church your whole life, and I think you should go to church, but it can it can be just one thing that you do, but when you embrace it as the thing, like you said, where this is what I'm living for, then the true and living God has the power to impact every area of your life. If you say, "Oh, I have my work, my marriage, my church," then they're not really impacting each other. But if you say, "I have my faith," and then that's the main thing, now it can impact your coaching, your teaching, your marriage, your parenting. And yeah, I would say anyone hearing this, like, give God a chance to be your main thing and let that impact how you act at school, how you act at your sport, how you act on the weekend, and see what happens. Because I think, like you said, you'll start to see a difference in your life. And you're reminding me of a story. Kurt Warner, if you have heard of him, he was a Super Bowl champion in the NFL. There's a movie about him called American Underdog. But above all that, he is a follower of Jesus. And I heard an interview with him, and he said, when he got married, his wife knew nothing about football. Like she didn't even know about the NFL or anything. So she wasn't attracted to his image because she didn't really care. And he talked about like, yeah, I can go win a game on Sunday with millions of people knowing, but when I get home, there's dishes to do, there's diapers to change, meals to prepare. And what you shared is so important because we can try and make everything look great. Look, I got this job, this house, this kid, these kids. Like, we can post and project all our best attributes. But when you get home and maybe you're alone, or you get home, you have to wash dishes and be a dad and be a husband, then it's like that's who you really are deep down. And when we can let God influence who we really are, I believe, and that I think you're saying, we'll find a lot more joy and a lot more purpose in that 99% of mundane life being who you actually are.
Yeah, that is exactly it. It's it's going from just having this goal or that goal as a coach, as a player, as a person at your job, to having it be a bigger picture, and then just appreciating what you have, what you've been blessed with, but also working for a higher purpose and working to help to be the role model. I have my own kids. I didn't I haven't mentioned that yet, but my own kids, I get to share a house with them. I get to share their mother with them. I get to share basketball with them. I get to share FCA with them. My oldest son just graduated last year, played basketball and was out. He was always short. I'm big. I'm 6'6". He was always short. He was a really late developer. But from his junior to his senior year, he grew. He's about 6'3" now. He had a fantastic senior year. I got to coach him. It was awesome. It was like it's one of those things where it's like this makes me so happy to have built this program and have my kids coming through it and being associated with it. And he had a fantastic senior year. I've got another son now who's a junior. Again, skill wise, he's definitely got some work to do skill wise, but he wants to do it. And he's asked me, come in the mornings and help me. I've not ever been the dad that's like, let's get up, we're going and we're working on this. He's asked for that. My older son did the same thing. That's really special when they want it. And they want your help, because usually you hear your dad and it's like, my dad doesn't know I'm going to listen to my coach or whatever. Well, I'm the dad and the coach, and they respect the coach part of that, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But with the FCA piece, to have my oldest son, who was an FCA leader for us, a student leader, the last 3 years, actually, as a sophomore, junior, and senior year, he was a FCA leader for us. And to see him grow in that comfort and sharing in his faith, I got to turn my lights on again. It was just it's just so special as a father to be able to share that with him. And you had talked about just like having it all come together, right? Appreciating my wife more, treating her better, being more respectful of her. We still have our moments, but there's definitely love there, and there's respect, and we're doing this together, right? We're doing this together with our kids, with each other, in our marriage, with our faith. It's something that is really special to grow into that, and to have your family be a part of that is really cool too, because that's ultimately what it is, right? It's not just your job. It's not just this thing that you get to do, this vacation you get to take. It's the people you're doing it with, and you're helping others, and they're helping you. And seeing my kids grow up with faith and expressing their faith, seeing them grow up being hard workers and working for what they got athletically and academically. And now my oldest off at college, and my younger boy, the junior, I have him in class now. I'll have him in basketball, and it's just it's the big picture that's so special, rather than the one championship or the one game, or that stuff all comes. And like, we've won a lot of games, and I'm preparing to like make our team the best and to try to win, but I'm not even thinking about like going and winning this game or that game anymore. It's about the big picture, and giving it your all, because that's what you do, and that's who you are now, and giving it your all and everything. So it's just fun.
Yeah. The one other thing you said I want to touch on is how leading FCA really you also get a lot from that. It's inspired you. In my life, one of the most transformational things I ever did was I was going into freshman year in college, and one of my old high school leaders for Young Life, which is similar to FCA, he texted me and was like, hey, do you want to come lead our middle school camp? And I was like, I'm not probably qualified. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I went, and it was an awesome experience. It grew me a lot, now that, man, I'm responsible to be a leader here. I gotta get my act together. And it launched me into pretty much what I've done the rest of my life since, which is 12 years now. So I would say to the listener, like, if you really want to feel joy and purpose, and if you want to grow, then get involved with something and then serve somebody else. And you will see we spend so much time trying to play video games and be on social media and do shenanigans with our friends, hoping that we'll feel this kind of fulfillment, but take time to serve and then see how fulfilling that is. So, okay, transitioning here, we're getting close. But I always like to ask, in sports, we learn so many lessons that apply to life. But if you could pick one lesson where you've seen that true, what would that be? Hey, are you a high school or college athlete looking to use social media to share your faith in Christ? If so, I would love to personally connect with you and tell you about our brand ambassador program, where we can get you hooked up with some of our merchandise to rep on your social media platforms, and we can get you hooked up with a coupon code for your audience where you earn commission on any sales that come from your platform. Head to our website and click the button that says Become a Brand Ambassador. I look forward to connecting with you, and let's spread the good news together and do it in style.
Oh boy, I got to think about that. So one lesson where that sports applies to life.
Yes.
Okay. I think I don't mean to take the easy answer on this, but it is such the truth that I think there are when I think of an individual sport versus a team sport, right? I coach track with Chad, our other FCA leader, and I coach basketball. And track, while there's a team aspect, there's a lot of individual aspects to track, right? Basketball is very much a team sport. So I would say, in looking at the two different ways for sports, right? The individual, like I have a drive, there's a goal, there's a purpose. I'm trying to do this. I'm working towards something. I think and that can be applied to the team side as well. But that is so important in life, I think, to be able to have a purpose of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's as a Christian, that's as a business person, that's as a teacher, that's as anyone in their life. There has to be that purpose and something you're working towards and having it matter, that it matters to you and you care. So on the individual side, it's that piece of sports, I think, that if you want to improve, it's on you to do it. It's on you as an individual to get better as a player, right? And you have resources, you have your coaches, you have training, you have equipment that you can use, weight equipment, other equipment, training equipment. There's all these things that you can do as an individual. On the team side, so I'm answering your question in two parts, but hopefully this will make sense. On the team side, it's doing that. Like you're responsible to do that, but it's what you're giving to the team and providing for the team and the experience of the team. It's working with others to do that. So I think every kid, honestly, if you could do it perfectly in my world, you would be involved in an individual sport and a team sport. Because there's two different ways, two different levels of responsibility, right? If you think of a football game, yeah, one guy missed a block, but there's 10 of the guys out there. If you're pole vaulting and you don't get your feet right, it's on you. There's nobody else. And in team sports, there's sometimes there's a chance, and this is where hopefully kids learn to shift the blame or the responsibility rather than having the collective success and the collective responsibility. And that is what I think can go into life, where you individually have the opportunity to work hard, and the responsibility falls on you to do this. And then you take that to the team aspect of what you do individually, to the team aspect, to grow with others, be with others, work with others, and see how those things can mesh. And we go back to the role idea. where that can mesh together in the team. That to me is really what I mean. Sports are fun. It's fun to compete. There's a lot of cool things that go with it, right? There's fun experiences you have being a part of a team on the bus, but the big takeaways are those two things, individually and team wise, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be the best you, but then it's bigger than you because that's gonna make the team the best. And man, in life, you need to be the best you because your family is depending on you, your community, maybe your school, the students that you teach every day. And if you're listening, you're like, well, I don't have kids and I don't have a job. It's like, it starts though right now.
Yep.
You need to start right now so that when you do have roles and responsibilities, you're ready.
It's back to that base, right? Having that base. I think even like I had shared with my faith journey, having the base was so beneficial to come back to and to use, and you've got a foundation, even though it didn't have the depth that the foundation was there. It's the same thing with this. Like you can use those opportunities now to build your base. You're still going to have different opportunities as you get to be 18, 20, 25, 35 kids, job, grandkids. Like that's going to change through your life, but it's developing that base right now and learning those skills and habits right now rather than learning the bad habits and then maybe not getting out of those bad habits. It's getting into the right skills and habits right now.
Man, amen. As we come to a close, you're here on the Dear Young Athlete podcast. So we end every episode by completing that statement, Dear Young Athlete blank. What would you say to your players, to the younger Michael Tauber?
I would say, dear young athlete, appreciate the experiences that are in front of you right now. Make the most of them in everything that you do. Work hard, learn skills, learn through those experiences, and take those experiences and see the bigger picture and go do something with the skills that you've learned, the experiences you've had, the success, the challenges, all the things that you've been able to take as a young athlete, to really try to encapsulate those into the bigger picture and say, wow, like I had this experience and I had this experience. I had this good thing that happened. I had this challenging thing that happened. I got benched. I got a starting spot, and take that and go from that experience into what you're going to see the rest of your life. Because there's a lot more that's going to come ahead of you, young athlete. There's a lot of things that are out there for you, opportunities, challenges. But what you're getting right now, without some of the bigger world pressures and other things that are going to pull you different directions, you have a lot of times you have school, family, sports in your life. You're not into the finances yet, young athlete, and that sort of thing with life. But you have this opportunity to take those experiences and those skills and do something with it.
Amen. Amen. Well, that I think is a great spot to put a cap on this, and I want to give you the last chance if you have any final words that you want to say.
I just appreciate you inviting me here, Jacob. You came out to our school last year, twice actually. You came to our FCA group once, and then you came to our track banquet at the end of the year, and that's where I met you. I appreciate meeting you. I appreciate the opportunity to do this. It's great to have a platform to talk about things, to share some things. It's always fun to talk about yourself, right? But to try to, it's back to the same thing, trying to serve and, provide, whether it's a role model or an experience or a perspective, to be able to do that. It's great that you're doing this and you provide these opportunities for people. Because again, it's, like while I feel like, hey, I'm giving something here, I'm getting a lot out of it too. I get this experience to do this cool thing with you, and that's really, like, I think that's a big takeaway for for everyone is when you give, you're getting a lot in return. It's whether you're giving in the collection plate at church, or you're giving of your time, or you're giving of your attention, giving of your love. Like you're going to get a lot in return from that. So I appreciate what I get in return from this. So thank you.
Well, thank you for taking time to be here to share your story, and I look forward to coming back to Rockford. You guys have amazing facilities, so I'll be excited about that. Tauber, it's been a pleasure, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jacob.
Later. And there you have it. One more episode in the books of the Dear Young Athlete podcast. Thank you for listening. Again, check out our website, our social media, rate and review us. Make sure you're following because we have some great episodes coming up that you won't want to miss. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.